Jack's heart nearly exploded in his chest as Cooper let out another desperate whimper, his golden fur bristling with unease. The dog threw himself against the wall again, claws raking at the drywall with a frantic desperation that sent a shiver down Jack's spine. The sound had become a constant in the past 2 days, scratching, whining, an obsessive focus on this one spot. But tonight, something was different. Urgent. Frantic. Jack shot up from the couch, his half-finished coffee sloshing over the rim of his mug and splattering onto the worn wooden floor. "Cooper, what is wrong with you?" His voice wavered, thick with frustration and something else, fear. The golden retriever turned his head, ears flattened, eyes wide and pleading. His body trembled as he pawed at the exact same spot he had been fixated on for days. The sight made Jack's stomach twist. He had dismissed it at first, assuming it was one of Cooper's weird dog obsessions. Maybe a mouse in the walls? Water damage? He had checked, of course, nothing. No signs of infestation. No leaks. Just a perfectly normal, solid wall. So why was Cooper acting like something was buried inside it? Jack swallowed hard, forcing down the lump in his throat. His fingers curled into a fist before he let out a slow breath. All right, buddy, I'll check again," he muttered, rubbing his temples as a dull headache throbbed in his skull. He stepped forward and pressed his ear against the cold drywall. The silence stretched on so thick it made his own breathing sound deafening. And then, a sound. Faint. Muffled. Crying. Jack stumbled back, his breath hitching. No. That was impossible. His heart slammed against his ribs as he strained to hear again, to make sure he wasn't losing his mind. But the sound was there, soft, uneven, and unmistakably human. A child. A chill crept up his spine as his pulse roared in his ears. Every rational part of his brain screamed at him to take a step back, to think this through, to not jump to insane conclusions. But Cooper wasn't hesitating. The dog barked, tail wagging anxiously, his gaze locked onto Jack with an urgency that sent a bolt of adrenaline through his body. Jack's hands trembled as he grabbed his toolbox from the shelf in the corner. His fingers curled around the crowbar, its weight heavy, solid, real. He barely took a moment to steel himself before plunging the metal into the drywall. The first crack split through the silence like a gunshot. Dust filled the air, thick and suffocating. Cooper barked louder, jumping beside him, his nose darting forward. Jack coughed, waving the dust away with his free hand. Then he froze. There, huddled in the tiny space between the walls, was a little girl. Jack's entire body locked up. His mind raced, struggling to make sense of what he was seeing. She was small, frail, no older than 7. Her tangled blonde hair fell over a face smeared with dirt. She clutched her knees to her chest, her thin arms wrapped tightly around herself. For a moment, she didn't move, she didn't even seem to breathe. As if she still thought she was hidden, as if she didn't dare believe she had been found. And then she opened her eyes. Jack fell back onto his heels, his lungs seizing as he met her gaze. Wide. Frightened. Real. She was real. "Hey," he croaked, his voice barely above a whisper. "It's okay. You're safe." The girl didn't respond right away. Her small hands trembled, her fingers gripping the hem of her oversized dress. She was terrified. Jack could see it in every inch of her fragile frame. He glanced at Cooper, who was sitting quietly now, ears perked, tail wagging softly. No hesitation, no doubt. Only gentle reassurance. Cooper had known. He had been trying to save her all along. Jack turned back to the girl. "Can you tell me your name?" he asked, keeping his voice soft, careful, as if one wrong word would send her deeper into whatever nightmare she had come from. She hesitated, then in a whisper so faint he barely caught it, she spoke. "Lily." Jack felt his throat tighten. "Lily. Okay. That's a beautiful name. How did you?" He stopped himself, choosing his next words carefully. "How did you get here?" Lily glanced around nervously. Her small chest rose and fell in uneven breaths. She opened her mouth, then shut it again. Jack's stomach twisted. Whoever had put her here, whoever had done this, she wasn't ready to say it out loud. "It's okay," he said quickly, raising his hands in reassurance. "You don't have to talk about it right now. You're safe. You're not alone." Lily's eyes flickered to Cooper, who let out a soft whine and crawled closer, resting his head on her knee. She blinked, still stiff, still uncertain. Then slowly her fingers reached out, brushing against his fur. And for the first time since Jack had found her, her lips twitched, just the smallest hint of a smile. Jack exhaled, a weight lifting from his chest. But they weren't out of the woods yet. Not even close. The police. He needed to call the police. He needed to get her help, to get whoever did this put away. His hand moved to his pocket, fingers brushing over his phone. But just as he was about to dial, something in Lily's expression stopped him cold. Fear. Deep, paralyzing fear. She didn't want the police. She didn't want to be found. Jack's stomach twisted into a knot. What kind of person made a child fear being rescued? What kind of nightmare had she escaped from? He clenched his jaw, forcing himself to stay calm. All right, kiddo, he said, keeping his voice steady. We'll figure this out together. Cooper let out a happy bark, his tail thumping against the floor. Jack scratched behind his ears, but his mind was already racing. If Lily didn't want the police, if she was scared of being found, then whoever did this wasn't just some random psychopath. This was something bigger. Something worse. Jack looked at the hole in the wall, at the dark, suffocating space where Lily had been hidden away like a secret never meant to be uncovered. His pulse roared in his ears. He had no idea what they were up against. But one thing was certain. He wasn't going to let her down. Not now. Not ever. Jack's pulse pounded in his ears as he sat across from Lily, watching her small hands clutch the sandwich like it might disappear at any second. She ate cautiously, her eyes darting around the room, body tensed as if ready to bolt at the first sign of danger. Every little movement screamed survival. It wasn't just hunger, this was something deeper, something learned. Someone had left her to fend for herself. Someone had made her this afraid. Jack swallowed hard, forcing himself to keep his voice gentle. He had to tread carefully. You doing okay? He asked, pushing a glass of milk a little closer to her. Lily nodded but said nothing. She chewed methodically, her movements slow, hesitant, as if every bite was calculated. Jack's stomach twisted. He had no idea how long she'd been in that wall, how long she'd been waiting to be found. Cooper lay beside her, his large head resting against her knee. She absent-mindedly stroked his fur, her fingers tangling in the golden strands. It was the first sign of comfort she'd shown since Jack had pulled her out of that nightmare. The dog had known. He had sensed her. Jack's gut told him that trusting Cooper's instincts had been the best decision he'd ever made. He leaned forward, keeping his voice soft. Lily, he started, watching for any reaction. She didn't look up, but her chewing slowed. Do you know how long you were in there? For a moment, silence hung between them. Then, with a tiny shake of her head, she answered. No words. Just that small, heartbreaking motion. Jack inhaled slowly, steadying himself. Did someone put you there? The reaction was instant. Lily froze, sandwich hovering just inches from her lips. Her breathing shallowed, and her fingers tightened around the crust until the bread crumbled between them. Jack didn't need a verbal answer. He already knew. He raised his hand slightly, palms out, trying to calm her. Hey, it's okay, he said quickly. You don't have to talk about it right now. I just want to understand so I can help you. She exhaled shakily and lowered the sandwich back onto the plate. Her arms wrapped around herself, as if she were trying to make herself smaller. Jack felt his anger simmering just beneath the surface. Someone had done this to her. Someone had shoved her into a wall and left her there. His jaw clenched. He wanted answers. He wanted justice. But more than anything, he wanted to make sure she never felt that kind of fear again. Jack let a few beats of silence pass before trying again. Do you have family? Someone who might be looking for you? Lily's lips parted slightly. For a brief second, it seemed like she might answer. But then she closed her mouth again, her gaze dropping to the table. Another shake of her head. No. Jack felt something inside him tighten. No family. No one looking for her. Just a little girl who had been left to disappear, forgotten behind the walls of his home. His throat burned with the weight of it. He exhaled, running a hand through his hair. All right, he said after a moment, his voice steady. Then you can stay here for now. Her head snapped up, eyes wide. I can. Her voice was so small, so fragile, like she didn't quite believe it. Jack nodded. Of course. You're not going back in that wall, and I'm not about to leave you on your own. For the first time since he'd found her, something in Lily's face shifted. A crack in the armor. A flicker of relief. Jack felt the weight of her trust settle on his shoulders, heavy and important. Whoever had done this to her, whoever had made her afraid, would never get another chance. As she finished her sandwich, Jack's mind spun. What was the best way to handle this? He couldn't keep her a secret forever. The police needed to know, but the sheer terror in her eyes when he mentioned them earlier told him everything. She didn't want to be found. And that scared Jack more than anything. For now he decided she just needed to feel safe. He could figure out the rest later. You want to see something cool? He asked, standing up and motioning toward the back door. Lily hesitated but nodded slightly. That was enough. Jack led her outside into the backyard. The late afternoon sun painted everything in warm gold. It wasn't much, a small patch of overgrown grass, a few scattered garden tools, but it was peaceful. Cooper immediately dashed to his favorite spot by the fence, nose to the ground, tail wagging like mad. Jack leaned against the porch railing and gestured toward the playful dog. Cooper loves this yard. It's his favorite place to be. Lily watched silent as Cooper pounced on an invisible enemy, rolling onto his back with a happy bark. Then the unexpected happened. The smallest, faintest giggle escaped her lips. Barely there. But Jack heard it. He didn't react. Didn't point it out. Didn't want to scare it away. Instead, he just stood there beside her, letting the moment be what it was. A tiny sliver of normalcy in the chaos of whatever her life had been. After a while, he turned back to her. Lily, he said gently, would you like to stay in the guest room tonight? She hesitated again, glancing at the house like she was afraid it might disappear. Then finally she nodded. Jack smiled. All right. It's nothing fancy, but it's got a nice bed and a window. He led her inside, down the hallway to the guest room. It was small but cozy, simple sheets, a wooden dresser, a lamp casting a warm glow in the corner. Jack turned down the blankets. Here you go, he said. If you need anything, my room's just down the hall. Lily lingered in the doorway, her fingers gripping the hem of her oversized dress. Then in a barely audible whisper, she asked, will Cooper stay with me? Jack smiled. Of course he can. Cooper, as if understanding, padded over and curled up beside the bed. Lily let out a breath, relief softening her face. She crossed the room and climbed onto the mattress, pulling the blankets up around her tiny frame. Jack stood in the doorway for a moment, watching her settle in. Good night, Lily. She didn't respond. But she didn't look afraid anymore. Jack sighed, stepping away and pulling the door halfway closed. He had no idea what he was up against, but one thing was clear, whoever had done this to Lily wasn't going to get away with it. Not if he had anything to say about it. Jack barely slept that night. He lay awake, staring at the ceiling, his mind a battlefield of questions. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw Lily's hollow, haunted gaze, the way her small hands trembled when she clung to Cooper's fur like he was the only solid thing left in her world. The weight of it pressed down on him. Someone had done this to her. Someone had trapped a child behind a wall, left her there to be forgotten. And she was still afraid, which meant whoever had done this wasn't just some distant memory. By the time the first rays of dawn broke through his blinds, Jack had made up his mind. He needed answers. But one wrong move could shatter everything. Lily was like a skittish bird, one loud noise, one wrong step, and she'd vanish into herself again. He had to be careful. He had to make her feel safe before he could even think about finding out the truth. He pulled on a sweatshirt and padded into the kitchen. The house was silent, except for the hum of the refrigerator and the soft rustle of Cooper shifting in his sleep. Jack peeked into the guest room. Lily was still curled up under the blankets, her tiny frame barely making a dent in the bed. But for the first time, her expression was peaceful. Cooper was sprawled beside her like a guardian, his chest rising and falling in steady rhythm. Jack exhaled quietly. Let her sleep. She needed it. Instead, he busied himself in the kitchen, making breakfast. He wasn't much of a cook, but scrambled eggs and toast would do. The smell filled the air, warm and inviting, and soon, he heard the soft shuffle of footsteps behind him. He turned slowly. Lily stood in the doorway hesitant, her small hands twisting in the fabric of her oversized shirt. Cooper trotted past her and flopped onto the floor with a satisfied groan. Jack kept his movement slow, careful not to startle her. Morning, he said casually, sliding a plate onto the table. Made some eggs. Figured you might be hungry. Lily lingered for a moment, then slowly moved toward the chair. She climbed up, her bare feet tucking beneath her as she picked up a piece of toast, nibbling the edges cautiously as if testing to see if it was safe. Jack sat across from her, taking a sip of his coffee, cold, but he barely noticed. He wanted to ask her 1,000 things. Where she came from. What happened to her? Who had put her in that wall? But pushing her now would do more harm than good. So instead, he said, I was thinking maybe we could go into town today. Lily's chewing slowed. She lowered the toast, shoulders tensing. Jack kept his voice light, casual. Get you some clothes, maybe a few things you like. She didn't answer, but her fingers tightened around the crust of the toast. Jack leaned back slightly. We don't have to if you don't want to, he added quickly. I just figured you might like something other than my old t-shirts. Lily glanced down at the baggy fabric swallowing her small frame. For a long moment, she said nothing. Then slowly she gave a tiny nod. Jack smiled slightly. All right then. We'll take it slow. They finished breakfast in silence, but it wasn't heavy. Jack cleaned up while Lily lingered in the chair, watching Cooper snore beside her. When Jack grabbed his keys and gestured toward the door, she hesitated, but when Cooper trotted after him, tail wagging, she followed without a word. By the time they were in Jack's truck, Lily had curled up in the passenger seat, pulling her legs to her chest. Cooper wedged himself between them, pressing against her like a furry shield. Jack kept the radio low as they drove, his eyes flicking toward her every so often, watching for any sign of panic. But she stayed quiet, fingers twisting in Cooper's fur. Their first stop was a small thrift store. Jack figured it would be less overwhelming than a big department store. Lily stuck close to his side, her eyes darting around like she expected someone to jump out at her. Jack let her take the lead, giving her space to pick out what she wanted. She lingered in the children's section, her fingers brushing over a faded blue sweater. Jack picked up a few other things, some jeans, a couple of soft-looking shirts, and held them out. These look good. Lily hesitated, then nodded. After paying, they stopped by a small cafe. Jack grabbed a coffee while Lily wrapped her hands around a cup of hot chocolate like it was the warmest thing she'd ever felt. Jack took a slow sip of his drink and leaned back slightly. You did good today. Lily blinked, surprised. Jack shrugged. I know this isn't easy. But you're doing great. Her lips parted slightly like she wanted to say something. Instead, she just nodded and took another sip of her hot chocolate. Jack let the silence sit. He wasn't going to push her, not yet. But one day she'd tell him the truth. And when she did, he'd be ready. As they stepped outside, Jack saw something shift in Lily's expression. Her fingers tightened around her cup, her shoulders stiff. She was watching the street, frozen in place. Jack followed her gaze and spotted a man across the road. Tall. Broad-shouldered. A dark jacket zipped up to his chin. He didn't seem unusual at first glance, just another stranger standing near a parked car. But Lily was shaking. Jack's stomach dropped. He stepped in front of her, subtly blocking her from the man's view. Lily? She flinched at his voice. Her grip on Cooper's leash turned white-knuckled. Her breathing was shallow, her lips parting as though she wanted to speak. But no words came out. Jack didn't push. He just stood there, his body a wall between her and the man. Whether she knew him or not, one thing was certain. She was terrified. And that meant Jack had just stepped into something far bigger than he ever could have imagined. Jack's pulse pounded in his ears as he guided Lily to the truck, his eyes flicking toward the man across the street. The guy wasn't moving, but Jack felt the weight of his gaze like a storm cloud pressing down. He wasn't about to take any chances. Come on, he said gently, keeping his voice steady. Let's go home. Lily didn't hesitate. She turned quickly, walking toward the truck with silent urgency. Jack stayed close, shielding her with his body as they climbed inside. He didn't relax, not even a little, until the doors were locked and the truck was rolling away from town. Only then did he let out a slow, measured breath. Glancing at Lily, he saw her staring out the window, her small fingers twisted in the fabric of her jeans. Her knuckles were white. Lily, he said softly, if there's something you want to tell me, you can. She didn't answer right away. The silence stretched between them, thick with tension. When she finally turned to him, her eyes held something raw. Fear. Real bone-deep terror. He was there, she whispered, barely audible over the rumble of the truck's engine. Jack's grip tightened on the steering wheel. He forced himself to stay calm. Before. She swallowed hard. At the house, when I was in the wall. A cold wave crashed through Jack's veins. His hands flexed on the wheel, his mind racing. Whoever that man was, he wasn't just some stranger on the street. He'd been there. He had seen Lily before. And that meant he wasn't done looking for her. Jack exhaled slowly, keeping his voice measured. Okay. That means we have to be extra careful now. Lily nodded, but she didn't say another word. Instead, she reached down, running her fingers through Cooper's fur, grounding herself in his warmth. The dog whined softly, sensing her unease. Jack didn't push her. Not now. He focused on the road, his thoughts spinning faster than the tires beneath them. Whoever had put Lily in that wall, they were still out there. And if they had come looking once, they would come again. Jack wasn't going to let them. By the time they pulled into the driveway, his mind was already moving 10 steps ahead. He killed the engine, glancing at Lily, but she was already reaching for the door handle. Her small fingers gripped it so tightly he thought she might snap it off. Cooper jumped down first, circling back to her side immediately, his protective stance unwavering. Jack exhaled, watching as Lily hesitated, scanning the yard, the porch, the windows of the house like she was making sure nothing had changed. "Lily," Jack said, his voice calm but firm. "I don't know who that man is, but if he had anything to do with what happened to you, we need to be smart. We need to be careful. Do you understand?" She nodded, but her eyes wouldn't meet his. Jack walked around the truck, holding the door open for her. She stepped down, immediately pressing into Cooper's side. Her other hand clutched the bag of clothes they picked up. Jack locked the truck and led them inside, shutting the door behind them with a heavy breath. The house felt safe, but he knew better than to trust that feeling. Safety was an illusion easily shattered. And whoever had locked Lily away, they weren't finished yet. Lily sank onto the couch as soon as they stepped inside, curling into herself, nearly disappearing into the cushions. Cooper leapt up beside her, pressing against her small frame, as if he could shield her from whatever ghosts haunted her mind. Jack dragged a hand down his face. He needed a plan. "Lily, I need to know more about him," he said, pulling up a chair and sitting across from her. "The man you saw today, was he alone? Did he see you?" She hesitated, her fingers tangling in Cooper's fur. I don't know if he saw me," she admitted. "I think he was just watching. But I know it was him." Jack's stomach knotted. "Before?" She nodded, swallowing hard. "At the house. I don't remember everything, but I remember him. His voice, it's deep and cold. He was mad. I don't know why. But he was. I tried not to listen. I tried to be really quiet." Jack clenched his jaw so hard it ached. His fingers curled into fists at his sides. Someone had done this to her. Someone had terrified her to the point where she believed silence was her only defense. He took a slow breath, forcing his anger down. "Okay," he said, keeping his tone even. "You're safe here. Promise. No one is going to hurt you again." Lily looked up at him then, searching his face for something, reassurance maybe. Trust. She didn't speak, but she gave a tiny nod. Jack stood, his mind whirring. Calling the police seemed like the obvious move, but Lily was terrified of being found. If she had been hidden away for a reason, what if the people searching for her weren't the ones meant to help? He had to be sure before making any calls. "We're going to take this one step at a time," he said. "Tonight, I'm setting up extra locks on the doors. Just in case. Tomorrow we'll talk more. You don't have to tell me everything yet. But I need to know what I'm up against." Lily nodded again, but the fear still lingered in her eyes. Jack sighed, running a hand through his hair. "Why don't you go change into something comfortable? I'll get some blankets for the couch." Lily hesitated, then stood, clutching the bag of clothes to her chest as she hurried toward the guest room. Cooper padded after her without a second thought. Jack exhaled slowly, turning toward the door, his mind already spinning with what needed to be done next. He checked the locks twice, then grabbed his toolbox. It wasn't much, but reinforcing the doors and windows would make him feel a little better. As he drilled an extra deadbolt into the back door, his mind circled back to the man in the dark jacket. If he had been near Jack's house before, that meant he knew something. Maybe he was looking for Lily. Maybe he was watching. Jack clenched his jaw, his fingers tightening around the drill. If that man came anywhere near this house again, he wouldn't live to regret it. Jack wouldn't let that man get anywhere near Lily. Not now. Not ever. By the time he was done securing the house, night had fallen, wrapping the world outside in an uneasy darkness. Jack stepped into the living room and found Lily curled up on the couch, wrapped in one of the sweaters she had picked out earlier. The fabric swallowed her small frame, making her look even more fragile. Cooper was sprawled beside her, his head resting protectively near her hand. Even in sleep she looked wary, her body curled tight like she was bracing for something. Jack exhaled, rubbing a hand down his face. He pulled a blanket from the closet and draped it over her, moving carefully so he wouldn't wake her. She stirred slightly but didn't protest. Just the sight of her there, finally allowing herself a moment of peace, made something twist inside his chest. "Sleep, kiddo," he murmured. "You're safe." He turned off the lamp, stepping back into the shadows, but he didn't go far. Instead, he sank into the armchair across the room, keeping watch. His body ached, exhaustion clawing at his mind, but he wasn't closing his eyes. Not yet. Not while there was still a chance that someone out there was looking for her. The next morning, soft whispers pulled Jack from a restless sleep. He blinked, momentarily disoriented, before realizing Lily was on the floor beside Cooper, her fingers running through his thick fur. She was murmuring softly to him, words too quiet for Jack to make out, but the sound was soothing. Cooper let out a contented sigh, his tail thumping lazily against the floor. Jack shifted, stretching his stiff muscles. "Morning." Lily flinched at his voice, turning quickly. But when she saw it was just him, she relaxed slightly, dropping her gaze. "Morning." Jack checked the clock. Just past 7. He studied her, noticing the way she kept her head down, fingers still tangled in Cooper's fur. "You sleep okay?" She gave a small shrug. "Cooper stayed with me." Jack smiled. "He's good at that." He pushed himself up, rubbing the back of his neck. "You hungry?" Lily hesitated, then gave a small nod. "All right," he said, heading to the kitchen. He reached for the pancake mix, figuring something warm and familiar might help ease the weight pressing down on her. As he moved around the kitchen, Lily shuffled over to the table, sitting down with her hands folded in her lap. She watched him closely, as if trying to decide whether or not to say something. Finally, her voice came, barely above a whisper. "Jack." He turned, flipping a pancake. "Yeah." She hesitated, fingers picking at the table's edge. If that man comes back, what will you do?" Jack set the spatula down, his gaze locking onto hers. "He won't get near you, Lily." Her throat bobbed as she swallowed. "But if he does?" Jack's jaw tightened. He leaned forward slightly, his voice steady and firm. "Then he'll regret it." Lily searched his face for a long moment. Then slowly she nodded. "All right," Jack said, setting a plate of pancakes in front of her. "Eat up. We'll figure this out together." She picked up her fork, hesitant at first, then took a small bite. Jack watched as something flickered across her face, something he hadn't seen before. Hope. They ate in relative silence, the occasional sound of Cooper's tail tapping against the floor breaking the stillness. Jack waited until she had finished most of her food before speaking again. "How about we take Cooper for a walk after breakfast? Fresh air might help clear our heads." Lily tensed, her gaze flickering toward the door. "Is it safe?" Jack nodded. "I'll be right there with you." "Cooper too." She didn't respond right away, but after a moment, she gave a small nod. Jack took that as a win. As they stepped outside, the crisp morning air filled his lungs. The town was still quiet, early enough that most people were just starting their day. Lily stuck close to Jack's side, her grip on Cooper's leash firm as they walked. Jack kept scanning the streets, searching for any sign of the man in the dark jacket. Nothing. But that didn't mean he wasn't out there. They reached a small park on the edge of town, and Jack motioned toward a bench. "Let's sit for a bit. Give Cooper a break." Lily hesitated, but eventually sat beside him. Cooper flopped down in front of them, tongue hanging out, panting happily. "I used to come here a lot," Jack said, watching the tree sway in the breeze. "Always helped me think." Lily traced a pattern on her jeans. "Did you ever feel scared?" Jack turned to her. "Yeah. Plenty of times." She looked up at him. "What did you do?" Jack thought about his answer. "I reminded myself I wasn't alone. That I had people." He glanced at Cooper. "And dogs who had my back." Lily exhaled softly. "I don't think I ever had that before." Jack's chest tightened. He wanted to tell her she did now. That she wasn't alone anymore. But he knew words weren't enough. He had to show her. "You do now." She looked down at Cooper, running her fingers through his fur. The dog let out a content sigh, pressing into her touch. They sat in silence for a while, letting the moment settle. Eventually, Lily spoke again. "Jack?" "Yeah." Her voice was quiet. "Do you think he'll come back?" Jack exhaled slowly. "I don't know. But if he does, he won't get near you." She nodded, her expression unreadable. Jack stood. "Come on. Let's get home." The walk back was quiet, but something had shifted. Lily still glanced over her shoulder, but her grip on the leash wasn't as tight. She was still afraid. But she wasn't alone. As they reached the house, Jack's stomach twisted. Something felt off. He slowed his pace, scanning the driveway. There were no cars parked where they shouldn't be. No broken windows. No obvious signs of forced entry. but his gut told him something was wrong. He placed a firm hand on Lily's shoulder, stopping her just before they stepped inside. "Stay close to me, okay?" She nodded, her fingers tightening on Cooper's leash. Jack turned the knob slowly, pushing the door open. The house was silent. Too silent. Cooper growled low in his throat, his body tensing as he sniffed the air. Jack moved carefully, scanning the living room. Nothing seemed out of place. He crept down the hallway, checking each room one by one. Kitchen, clear. Bathroom, empty. Guest room, untouched. But when he reached his bedroom, his breath caught in his chest. The closet door was open, and he knew for damn sure he hadn't left it that way. Jack froze. His stomach twisted into a tight knot. His desk drawers pulled open. Papers scattered across the floor. His closet door hung ajar like someone had been rummaging through it, searching. Violating. His pulse pounded in his ears. Someone had been here. His breath came sharp as he turned on his heel, striding back toward the living room. Lily stood where he'd left her, arms wrapped tightly around herself, her face pale. "Did you hear anything? See anyone?" Jack's voice was steady, but his grip on control was slipping. She shook her head, barely whispering no. Jack's jaw tightened. Whoever had broken in didn't take anything valuable. At least, nothing obvious. But that wasn't the point. Someone had been inside his house, going through his things. They knew. They knew where she was. His fingers clenched into fists before he forced himself to think, to act. The locks weren't broken. No windows shattered. Whoever had come in either picked the lock or had another way inside. Jack swallowed the bitter taste rising in his throat. They weren't just watching anymore. They were moving. "We're not staying here," he said, his voice firm. "Pack a bag. Now." Lily's eyes went wide. "Where are we going?" "Somewhere safe." He didn't give her a choice. There was no choice. For a moment, she hesitated, but then she nodded, spinning on her heel and rushing toward her room, Cooper following close behind. Jack didn't waste a second. He grabbed his own bag, stuffing in essentials, clothes, cash, his gun. His mind worked overtime, calculating the safest option. He had places. Friends he trusted. But whoever was after Lily wasn't just anyone. By the time she came back, backpack clutched tight in her small hands, Jack already had the truck keys in his grip. "Let's go." Lily clambered into the passenger seat, Cooper jumping in behind her, tail low, ears alert. Jack locked the door behind them and slid behind the wheel, starting the engine. As they pulled out of the driveway, Jack glanced at the rearview mirror, scanning for movement. Watching. Waiting. A sinking feeling settled in his gut. This was just the beginning. The road stretched long and empty ahead of them, darkness swallowing the highway. Jack kept his grip firm on the wheel, every muscle in his body locked in place. The headlights sliced through the night, illuminating nothing but pavement and trees. Beside him, Lily curled up against the seat, her backpack clutched like a lifeline. Her eyelids drooped, exhaustion pulling her under, but even in sleep, her small hands gripped the straps. Jack's voice was quiet but firm. "We're gonna be okay. I have a cabin outside town. No one will find us there." Lily nodded, but she didn't speak. Jack wasn't sure if he was saying it for her sake or his own. His house had been invaded. His privacy shattered. That wasn't a coincidence. Whoever was after Lily wanted her. And they weren't going to stop until they got what they came for. Jack's grip tightened on the wheel. Not happening. He adjusted the rearview mirror, scanning for headlights. So far, nothing. No cars trailing too close. No signs of being followed. Still, he forced himself to keep his speed steady, no sudden moves, nothing to give away that they were running. Because they were running. The city lights faded behind them, swallowed by thick trees and empty roads. It was quieter out here, just the hum of the tires against the asphalt, the occasional chirp of insects beyond the windows. Lily shifted beside him. "How do you know we'll be safe?" Jack hesitated. Because he didn't. But he met her eyes and said what she needed to hear. "Because I won't let anything happen to you." She studied him for a long moment. Then finally she nodded. "Okay." It wasn't much, but it was enough. Jack turned onto a gravel road, tires crunching over the uneven path. The cabin loomed ahead, tucked between towering pines, its silhouette barely visible in the moonlight. No lights. No signs of life. Just quiet. Safe. He parked, killing the engine. For a moment they sat in silence, listening to the night. Then, Jack grabbed his bag. "Come on." Lily slid out of the truck, pulling her backpack close. Cooper jumped down, sniffing the air, his body tense but ready. Jack led them up the steps, reaching into his pocket for the key. The cabin wasn't his, but his friend had always said it was his to use if he ever needed a place to lay low. If ever there was a time, it was now. The lock clicked. The door swung open. Jack reached inside, flipping on the lights. The cabin was small, lived in. A stone fireplace sat in the corner, a couch that had seen better days in the center. A wooden table. A tiny kitchen in the back. It wasn't much, but it was safe. Lily stepped inside slowly, scanning every shadow. No one else is here? Just us. Jack shut the door behind them, double-checking the lock. You can take the bedroom. I'll stay out here. She nodded, setting her backpack down near the couch. Cooper sniffed around, circling the room before settling near the fireplace. Only then did Lily let out a breath. Jack watched her, his chest tight. She reached out, running her fingers over the worn couch fabric, staring at nothing. Then, almost too quiet to hear, she whispered, "Do you think they'll find us?" Jack crouched down beside her. "I don't know," he admitted. "But I do know one thing, whoever they are, they won't take you. Not while I'm breathing." She looked at him, her eyes searching his for something. Reassurance. Hope. She nodded but didn't speak. Jack ruffled her hair gently. "Get some rest, kiddo." As she walked toward the bedroom, Cooper trailing behind her, Jack exhaled slowly. Then he turned back to the door and checked the lock again, because something in his gut told him this wasn't over. Not by a long shot. Jack exhaled slowly, his fingers pressing against his temples. They had a long day ahead of them, and Lily needed sleep. They both did. She hesitated, glancing toward the dark hallway, then nodded. Without another word, she grabbed her backpack and disappeared into the bedroom. Jack stood there for a moment, staring at the closed door. Then with a sharp breath, he turned toward the windows, pulling the curtains shut one by one, sealing them in. The door locked. The deadbolt secured. But it wasn't enough. His eyes flicked to the rifle above the fireplace. Just in case. He pulled it down, checking the ammo, the weight of it steady in his hands. He wasn't a paranoid man, but after tonight, paranoia wasn't just smart, it was survival. Jack didn't sleep. Instead, he sat in the worn armchair by the window, the rifle resting across his lap, listening. Every single sound. The cabin creaked under the weight of settling wood. A branch snapped outside. The wind howled through the trees. Cooper lay curled at his feet, ears twitching as if he could sense Jack's tension. Jack's grip tightened on the rifle. His pulse hammered in his skull. He didn't know who was after Lily, but whoever they were, they had resources. They knew where to look. Past midnight, the cabin settled into an eerie silence. Too silent. The kind of silence that makes your instincts scream that something's wrong. Then a sound. Soft footsteps. Jack's heart slammed against his ribs. He turned his head sharply, his body already tensing up, and then exhaled when he saw her. Lily. She stood in the doorway, wrapped in a blanket, her small figure barely a shadow against the dim glow of the fireplace. "Can't sleep?" Jack asked, keeping his voice low. She shook her head and stepped closer. "I keep hearing things." Jack gave a slow nod. "Me too." For a second, neither of them spoke. The quiet pressed down on them like a heavy weight, the unspoken question hanging between them. What if they find us? Lily hesitated, then lowered herself onto the couch, curling up against the armrest, the blanket bunched under her chin. She was trying to be brave, but Jack could see it, the fear in her eyes, the way her hands gripped the fabric tight. She didn't look at him when she whispered, "What if they come anyway?" Jack ran a hand through his hair, exhaling slowly. "Then we'll be ready." Lily studied him for a long moment before resting her head on her arms. "I wish I could believe that." Jack didn't have an answer for her. So he just sat there, rifle in hand, staring out into the darkness, waiting for morning. Jack stayed awake long after Lily's breathing evened out. She'd finally drifted off, curled up on the couch, but Jack couldn't let himself relax. Not with the weight pressing down on his chest. Someone had broken into his house. Someone was after Lily. And he had no idea who they were or how far they were willing to go. Cooper let out a low whimper in his sleep, his paws twitching as if he were running. Jack reached down, scratching behind his ears, grounding himself. "Think, Jack. Think." The cabin was safe for now. But how long would that last? Whoever was looking for Lily had already gotten inside his house without a trace. If they could find his home, they could find this place. It was only a matter of time. Jack stood slowly, stretching the stiffness from his muscles. He moved to the window, peeling the curtain back just enough to see outside. The forest was still. Not a single movement. But that didn't mean they were alone. He checked his watch. 3 a.m. He needed rest. His body ached for it. But his instincts wouldn't let him. Instead, he moved into the kitchen, running cold water over his face, gripping the edge of the sink, forcing himself to focus. He needed a plan. Jack must have dozed off at some point because the next thing he knew, the sound of movement pulled him awake. His fingers twitched toward the rifle before his brain caught up. Lily stood by the table, rubbing the sleep from her eyes. Cooper wagged his tail at her feet, stretching with a quiet yawn. Jack pushed himself up, blinking against the morning light filtering through the curtains. Morning. Lily gave a small nod. Morning. Did you sleep? She shrugged. Okay, I guess. You. Jack smirked faintly. A little. She didn't call him on the lie. Jack poured 2 glasses of orange juice, setting one in front of her, then pulled a box of cereal from the cabinet. We need to talk about what's next, he said, keeping his voice steady. We can't stay here forever. Lily froze, her fingers gripping her glass. What if we just stay? Hide. Jack sighed. He wished that was an option. Hiding only works for so long, kiddo. Whoever's looking for you, they're not stopping until they find you. Lily swallowed, looking down at the table. Then what do we do? Jack hesitated. Then finally he said, first I figure out who we're dealing with. Lily lifted her gaze, uncertainty flashing across her face. Jack leaned forward. There's someone I trust. An old friend. He might have answers. I'm gonna make a few calls, see what I can find. In the meantime, we stay alert. No unnecessary risks. Lily didn't argue. She just gave a small nod. But Jack saw it, the fear still there, buried just beneath the surface. She was scared. And she was trying to be brave. Jack had to respect that. After breakfast, Jack stepped outside, phone in hand. The morning air was crisp, the forest eerily quiet. He took a deep breath, then dialed a number he hadn't called in years. It rang twice before a voice picked up. This is Mike. Jack didn't waste time. Mike, it's Jack. I need a favor. A brief pause. Then, Jack. Been a while. You in trouble? Jack exhaled, glancing back toward the cabin. Not me. A kid. She's in danger. Someone broke into my house looking for her. A low whistle. That's serious. What do you have so far? Not much. Just a bad feeling that whoever's after her isn't going to stop. Mike's tone turned grave. You need information. Jack clenched his jaw. Yeah. A beat of silence. Then. All right, Mike said. Send me what you got. I'll see what I can dig up. Might take a few hours. Jack nodded, even though Mike couldn't see it. That's fine. Jack. Yeah. Mike's voice lowered. Be careful. Jack tightened his grip on the phone. I always am. Jack smirked at Mike's chuckle, but there was no humor in his eyes. I owe you. You owe me plenty already, Mike shot back, his tone light but edged with something heavier. I'll call you when I have something. Stay safe. Jack ended the call and exhaled, rolling the tension out of his shoulders. Step 1 complete. Now came the hard part, waiting. Back inside, the cabin was unnervingly silent. Lily sat curled on the couch, knees tucked to her chest, eyes wary as he stepped in. Who were you talking to? She asked softly. A friend, Jack said, setting his phone down. He's looking into things for us. Lily nodded but hugged her knees tighter, her voice barely above a whisper. What if they find us first? Jack knelt before her, locking eyes with her. Then we fight back, he said, voice steady. We don't let them win. She searched his face, chewing her lip, not quite convinced, but at least she wasn't paralyzed by fear anymore. Jack would take that as a small victory. The day dragged on, thick with unease. Every noise outside made them flinch. Jack busied himself securing the cabin, reinforcing doors, checking sightlines. He needed to be ready. Lily stayed close to Cooper, running her fingers through his fur for comfort. The dog never strayed far, as if he understood the danger pressing in on them. By late afternoon, Jack's phone rang. He snatched it up before the second ring. Tell me you got something. Mike didn't waste time. Yeah. The girl, Lily, right? She's not just some random kid. She was part of a case a few years back. Went missing under suspicious circumstances. No foster placement, no known relatives. And here's the kicker, her disappearance was linked to some serious players. The kind you don't want knocking on your door. Jack's stomach coiled tight. What kind of players? Private interests. Wealthy. Powerful. The type that makes problems disappear. Mike hesitated. Whatever Lily was a part of, it wasn't legal. And now it looks like someone wants to clean up loose ends. Jack's grip on the phone tightened, meaning they won't stop until they have her. Exactly. If they already broke into your house, they're close. It's only a matter of time before they find you. Jack exhaled sharply, keeping his voice level. Thanks, Mike. I'll handle it. Mike's tone darkened. Be smart, Jack. These people don't play fair. Jack hung up, turning to find Lily watching him. Her small fingers clutched at her sleeves, eyes filled with quiet dread. They know where I am, don't they? She murmured. Jack sat beside her, exhaling. Not yet. But they will soon. Lily swallowed hard, then straightened, fists clenching. Then we have to go. Jack studied her, surprised at the resolve in her voice. Go where? She took a breath, steadying herself. I don't know. But if they're looking for me, I don't want to just sit here and wait. I don't want to be afraid anymore. Pride flickered in Jack's chest. She was scared, but she was fighting. That mattered. He nodded. All right, kiddo. We'll figure it out. Time was slipping away. Jack rubbed his temples, thinking. If they'd already tracked his house, it wouldn't take long to find the cabin. Running wasn't an option, it was a necessity. Lily sat across from him, waiting, her legs curled up beneath her. Where do we go? Jack exhaled. We need to stay off-grid for a while. I know a place. An old friend of mine had a ranch 2 states over. It's been abandoned for years. No neighbors. No records. We can hole up there until I figure out the next move. Lily hesitated, then nodded. When do we leave? Jack pushed to his feet, peering through the curtains. The woods were still. Too still. He didn't trust it. Now he said, pack only what you need. We travel light. If we're lucky, we have a few hours before they get here. Lily didn't argue. She grabbed her backpack, stuffing in what little she owned. Jack did the same, wallet, food, extra ammunition. The essentials. Cooper paced near the door, sensing the urgency in the air. Jack slung his bag over his shoulder and crouched in front of Lily. Listen to me. When we leave, we don't stop until we're out of this state. No main roads. No talking to strangers. If anything feels off, you tell me. Lily nodded, knuckles white against her backpack straps. Jack gave her shoulder a reassuring squeeze. Let's go. They slipped out into the cold night. Jack led them through the trees, keeping low, ears straining for movement. He had parked the truck farther up the trail, never leave an escape route obvious. As they approached, he scanned the area, every muscle coiled. Nothing. Good. He opened the passenger door, helping Lily climb in. Cooper leapt into the back seat, tail down, eyes sharp. Jack made one last perimeter check before sliding into the driver's seat. The engine rumbled to life. Jack pulled onto the dirt road, moving fast but controlled, eyes flicking to the rearview mirror. The first hour was nothing but silence and shadows. Lily shifted. Do you think they're still looking for us? Jack kept his eyes on the road. They won't stop. But we're not making it easy for them. She turned to the window, watching trees blur past. Jack wanted to reassure her, but he wouldn't make promises he couldn't keep. Hours passed. They crossed the state line, Jack taking back roads, skirting towns. When they finally reached the abandoned ranch, dawn was just beginning to break. Jack pulled off onto a dirt path. The place was untouched, overgrown grass, a sagging gate. Good. No signs of life. He cut the engine. Stay in the truck, he told Lily as he stepped out. Cooper whined but stayed put. Jack scanned the area, gun hovering near his hip. The house loomed ahead, covered in dust and decay. He stepped onto the porch, listening. Nothing. Just the wind. Still, Jack's gut twisted. They were safe. For now. The ranch house was a forgotten relic, a husk of a home left to time and nature. Dust lay thick on every surface, undisturbed for years. Jack moved cautiously, his footsteps silent against the creaking wooden floorboards. The air was stale, carrying the faint scent of aged wood and neglect. Room by room, he cleared the space, checking every window, every door, ensuring they were truly alone. When he was satisfied, he returned to the truck and nodded at Lily. It's safe. She stepped out hesitantly, her small frame still tense with uncertainty. The weight of fear clung to her like a second skin. Cooper leapt down beside her, nose twitching as he sniffed at the unfamiliar ground. His tail was stiff, ears alert. Even the dog could sense the unease in the air. Jack locked the truck and led them inside, the old door groaning in protest as he pushed it open. The house was cold. Empty. But it would do. Jack dropped his bag onto the dusty table, watching Lily as she stood in the center of the room, shifting her weight from one foot to the other. She looked so small against the vast emptiness, a lone figure swallowed by shadows. "We'll stay here for a while," Jack said, keeping his voice steady. "No lights at night. We stay low. If anything feels off, we leave immediately." Lily nodded, swallowing hard. She sat down on the worn-out couch, pulling her knees to her chest. The exhaustion on her face was unmistakable, dark circles carving into her pale skin. Jack rubbed the back of his neck. "You hungry?" She shook her head. He didn't push. "Get some rest. I'll keep watch." Lily hesitated before lying down, using her backpack as a makeshift pillow. Cooper curled up beside her, pressing against her side for warmth. His tail flicked against the dusty floor, the only sound in the otherwise silent room. Jack moved to the front window, gripping his gun tightly. The fields beyond stretched into endless darkness, the wind whispering secrets through the trees. His body was exhausted, but his mind was a battlefield of thoughts. They had a moment of peace, but it wouldn't last. Someone out there was looking for them. And they weren't the type to give up. The hours dragged by. Jack fought to stay alert, his eyes scanning the tree line for any sign of movement. Every creak of the house, every rustling leaf, sent his nerves tightening like a wire ready to snap. Even Cooper remained restless, his ears flicking at every unfamiliar noise. Then near dawn, a sound cut through the quiet. A low hum. Faint at first, but growing stronger. Jack stiffened. His grip tightened around the gun as he leaned forward, eyes locked on the horizon. Through the dense trees, just barely visible in the early morning mist, headlights. His heart pounded. They had found them. He turned sharply, rushing back to Lily. He shook her shoulder, firm but gentle. "Lily, wake up. We have to go. Now." She stirred, blinking groggily. "What?" "They're here." His voice left no room for questions. "We don't have much time." Fear flashed across her face, but she didn't hesitate. She bolted upright, grabbing her backpack. Cooper let out a low growl, sensing the tension thick in the air. Jack grabbed their bags, shoving one into Lily's arms. "Get to the truck. I'll cover you." Lily didn't argue. She scrambled to her feet, clutching Cooper's leash as she hurried outside. Jack followed, gun in hand, his pulse hammering in his ears. The vehicle was closer now, the headlights cutting through the mist, growing brighter with each second. They weren't coming to talk. Jack threw open the truck door. "Get in." Lily jumped inside, pulling Cooper in with her. The dog whined but didn't resist, his ears flattened against his head. Jack slammed the door shut, his fingers fumbling with the keys as he shoved them into the ignition. The engine roared to life just as the approaching SUV rounded the last curve in the dirt road. Jack cursed under his breath. No more time. He jammed the truck into reverse, tires skidding on the loose dirt before catching traction. The vehicle shot backward in a cloud of dust, then Jack spun the wheel, jerking them onto the main trail. His foot slammed on the accelerator, the truck launching forward. "Hold on," he muttered. Lily clutched Cooper to her chest, twisting in her seat to look behind them. "Jack, they're speeding up." He glanced at the mirror. The SUV was gaining, its high beams like twin knives slicing through the dawn. His stomach twisted. These weren't just hired thugs. Whoever they were professionals. His mind raced. The dirt road led to a winding back trail that connected to the highway. If he could reach it, they might have a shot at disappearing into traffic. But if the SUV had backup waiting, they'd be driving straight into a trap. A gamble? Jack made his decision in a split second. He veered sharply off the main path, taking a detour through the thick woods. The truck bounced violently, branches slapping against the windshield as they tore through the underbrush. "Jack?" Lily yelped as she was thrown against her seatbelt. "Where are we going?" "Away," he gritted out. "Just hang on." The SUV followed, but it wasn't built for rough terrain. Jack forced the truck through a narrow gap between two thick tree trunks, then veered left. A loud crack sounded as something slammed into the side of the truck. Jack cursed. They had clipped him, trying to force him off course. He fought the wheel, keeping them steady. He needed to lose them. Fast. Up ahead, a shallow creek cut through the land. If he could make it across, the thick trees beyond would give them more cover. "We're jumping it," he warned. Lily's eyes went wide. Jumping what? Before she could argue, the truck lunged forward, launching over the ravine. The tires slammed onto the opposite bank with a bone-rattling jolt, the undercarriage scraping against the rocks. Jack checked the mirror. The SUV hesitated at the edge of the creek, its driver debating whether to follow. Jack didn't wait to find out. He floored the gas, disappearing deeper into the forest. Minutes passed in tense silence. The only sounds were the truck's rumbling engine and Jack's racing heartbeat. Finally, he spotted a narrow service road ahead. He took the turn, slowing just enough to avoid drawing attention. Only when he was sure they weren't being followed did he let out a slow breath. Lily was still clutching Cooper, her knuckles white. Did we lose them? Jack nodded but didn't ease his grip on the wheel. For now. The silence between them was heavy. They both knew the truth. This wasn't over. Billy's whisper was barely audible over the sound of Jack's own heartbeat pounding in his ears. We can't stay here, she murmured. They'll keep coming. Jack clenched his jaw, his grip tightening on the wheel as he stared down the desolate road ahead. She was right. They were never more than a few steps ahead of the people hunting them. If they stopped, even for a moment too long, it would all be over. His mind worked fast, piecing together a new plan. We'll find another safe house, he said, his voice low but firm. Somewhere they won't expect. But first, we need supplies. Lily didn't argue. She just nodded, determination flickering behind the fear in her eyes. Jack turned the truck down a hidden back road, driving deeper into the unknown. The rising sun cast long shadows across the empty stretch of asphalt ahead, but it didn't bring comfort. They weren't safe yet. They might never be. After miles of silence and tension, Jack spotted a small gas station on the outskirts of a rundown town. The kind of place where nobody asked questions, where travelers were just ghosts passing through. He pulled in, scanning the lot. No movement. No signs of trouble yet. Stay in the truck. Lock the doors. If anything happens, you know what to do, he told Lily, his voice firm. She swallowed hard but nodded, gripping Cooper's fur like a lifeline. The dog's ears perked up, his eyes locked onto Jack as he stepped out. Jack moved fast, filling the tank before heading inside. The store smelled of dust and stale coffee, shelves half empty, time having drained it of life. He grabbed bottled water, protein bars, and a map, keeping his head down as he paid in cash. No conversations. No eye contact. He just had to get out. Then he saw it. A black sedan, parked near the entrance. The driver's stone-faced eyes locked onto him. Jack didn't hesitate. He strode back to the truck, his pulse pounding. Climbing in, he started the engine, his voice sharp as he muttered, "Hold on." Lily barely had time to react before Jack floored it, peeling out of the lot in a screech of tires. The sedan followed, rolling out smooth and steady. They found us again, Lily whispered, gripping the seat. Jack clenched his jaw, eyes locked on the rearview mirror. Then we make sure they don't catch us. He swerved onto the highway, weaving between cars as the sedan matched his every move, a relentless shadow. Whoever these people were, they weren't giving up. Jack had one last play, a risky one. An old dirt road off the highway, leading to an abandoned quarry. If he could lose them in the maze of rock and dust, they might have a chance to vanish for good. Gritting his teeth, Jack made the call. He yanked the wheel hard to the right, sending the truck bouncing onto the rough terrain. Dust billowed in thick clouds behind them, swallowing the truck whole. The sedan followed, tires skidding over loose gravel. Jack, what do we do? Lily asked, clutching Cooper, her knuckles white. Jack's eyes locked onto the path ahead. We lose them. Up ahead, the road split, two narrow paths, both leading into the unknown. Choose wrong and they'd be trapped. Jack made his choice, veering left onto the more overgrown path. Branches scraped against the truck, but he didn't slow down. The sedan followed, its tires skidding dangerously close to the loose edge of the gravel road. Then Jack saw it. An old wooden bridge. Narrow, weather-worn, barely wide enough for the truck. No way of knowing if it would hold. But he had no other option. Hold on, Jack barked. Lily squeezed her eyes shut. Jack slammed the gas pedal, barreling onto the bridge. The wooden planks groaned beneath them, but the truck made it across. Then a crack. A splintering, gut-wrenching crack. The sedan's driver hesitated for half a second too long, but it was already too late. The bridge gave way beneath them. With a sickening crunch, the car plummeted into the rocky ravine below. Lily let out a shaky breath. Did they, They're not following us anymore, Jack answered, but his hands stayed tight on the wheel. But we can't stay here. The dust was settling, but Jack knew better than to believe they were safe. Whoever these people were, they had resources. They wouldn't give up that easily. Jack drove for another hour, taking random turns, switching onto smaller roads whenever possible. Only when he was sure no one was following did he finally slow down, pulling into a nearly abandoned town. Most of the buildings looked forgotten, untouched for years. Perfect. He parked behind a rundown gas station, turning to Lily. We lay low here for a while. No lights. No sounds. We stay inside. Lily nodded, still clutching Cooper. Her face was pale, her body tense, but she didn't argue. Jack stepped out first, scanning their surroundings before motioning her to follow. Inside, the gas station was dead. The air was stale, shelves empty except for a few dust-covered cans. A faded, closed sign hung crooked on the door. Jack found a small storage room in the back. It would have to do. Lily curled up against the wall, Cooper lying beside her like a silent protector. Jack sat by the door, gun resting on his knee. His mind raced. They needed to disappear completely. Because this wasn't over. Not even close. The silence stretched on, pressing against them like a weight. Lily, exhaustion finally catching up, drifted off to sleep, her head resting against Cooper's fur. Jack watched her, his grip tightening around the gun. She deserved better than this life of running. She deserved safety. Then a sound. A slow, deliberate creak outside. Jack froze, every muscle in his body locking into place. Another noise followed, a footstep against the wooden floorboards of the gas station's porch. Someone was out there. Moving swiftly, Jack pressed himself against the wall near the door, heart pounding. The sound of breathing close. Steady. Then, in one sharp motion, he yanked the door open, gun raised. A man stood there. Older, maybe late 50s. Grizzled beard. Weary eyes. His hands were up in surrender. He didn't look like one of the men chasing them. But that didn't mean he wasn't dangerous. Jack didn't lower his gun. His grip was steady, eyes locked onto the man standing before him. "Who are you?" he demanded. The man hesitated, his gaze flicking between Jack and the truck. "Name's Henry," he said, his voice rough, weathered by years of hard living. "Saw your truck. Figured you might need some help." Jack's jaw tightened. "Help? From a stranger? Help with what?" Henry gestured toward the empty town. "You ain't the first people to come through here looking for a place to hide. Folks like us gotta stick together." Jack didn't trust him. He never trusted anyone. But options were running out fast. He lowered the gun slightly but kept his finger on the trigger. "We're just passing through." Henry nodded as if he expected that answer. "Figured as much. But if you're running from someone, you should know they've been sniffing around." Jack's stomach dropped. "Who?" "Couple of men in suits. Fancy car. Came through here an hour ago asking questions." Henry leaned in slightly. "Didn't like my answers. So they left. But they'll be back." Jack clenched his jaw. They were too close. "We need to go." Henry scratched his chin. "Got a place a few miles out. Ain't much, but it's off the grid. Safe. You're welcome to use it." Jack studied him. Henry didn't have the look of a liar, but trust was a dangerous thing. Lily stirred behind him, rubbing her tired eyes. "Jack? What's going on?" Jack glanced at her, then back at Henry. He made his decision. "We follow you. But if this is a trap..." Henry held up a hand. "Ain't a trap, son. Just an old man trying to do right." Jack hesitated for only a second before nodding. "Lead the way." They moved quickly. Lily clutched Cooper as they climbed into the truck. Jack kept his distance, following Henry down a winding dirt road into the wilderness. The trees thickened, swallowing them in shadows. Every mile they put between themselves and town was another mile between them and the people hunting them. Lily sat silently beside Jack, fingers twisting the hem of her jacket. Cooper dozed lightly at her feet, his ears twitching with every bump in the road. The exhaustion was catching up to all of them. After what felt like an eternity, Henry's truck stopped in front of a small weathered cabin. It was barely visible among the trees, its wooden structure blending into the wilderness. Jack pulled up behind him and killed the engine. The only sound was the ticking of the truck cooling down. Henry stepped out first, stretching his back. "Ain't much, but it'll do. You won't find it on any maps. No one comes out here unless they know what they're looking for." Jack scanned the area. Secluded. Hidden. It would buy them time. Lily hesitated before opening her door. She stuck close to Jack as they approached the cabin, her fingers gripping his sleeve. Henry noticed and gave a small nod. "No one's gonna hurt you here, kid. You got my word." Jack pushed the door open first, sweeping the cabin with his eyes before letting Lily step inside. The interior was as simple as the outside, one large room, an old wood stove, a rickety table, and a single cot against the far wall. It smelled of pine and dust, untouched for years. Henry dropped his keys onto the table. "Water runs off a well. No electricity, but there's enough firewood to keep warm. Should be safe enough till you figure out your next move." Jack turned to him, eyes sharp. "Why are you helping us?" Henry sighed and lowered himself into one of the chairs. "Had a daughter once. She got mixed up with the wrong people. I couldn't save her." He looked away. "Guess this is my way of making up for it." Jack studied him for a long moment. He'd seen enough men like Henry to know he wasn't lying. Thank you. Henry waved him off. Don't thank me yet. Those men in suits? They'll be back. You need to be ready. Lily sat on the cot silent. Jack walked over, kneeling in front of her. We'll be okay here. For now. She nodded but didn't meet his eyes. They'll never stop looking, will they? Jack hesitated. Then he gave her the only truth he had. No. But I won't let them find you. Cooper nudged Lily's hand, sensing her unease. She wrapped her arms around the dog, burying her face in his fur. Jack knew she needed more than promises. She needed action. He turned to Henry. You got a way to contact someone without it being traced? Henry rubbed his jaw, then nodded. Got an old radio out back. Not much, but it'll do the job. Jack followed him outside, stepping into the crisp evening air. The weight of what came next pressed down on him. Henry led him to a shed where an old shortwave radio sat covered in dust. Jack adjusted the dials, searching for the right frequency. A crackle. Then a voice. Jack? Where the hell have you been? I've been looking for you. We ran into trouble. I need intel. The people after Lily, they're not just some private security team, are they? A pause. Then Mike's voice came back, lower. No. They're worse. The girl is valuable, Jack. I dug deeper, and what I found isn't good. Whoever she was taken from, they have power. Government level. And they're not going to stop until they have her back. Jack clenched his jaw. There has to be a way out. There might be, Mike said. But it's risky. You need to disappear. Completely. Change identities. Leave the country if you have to. It's the only way to keep her safe. Jack's stomach twisted. He had spent years on the run before, but this was different. He wasn't just protecting himself. I'll figure something out, he said. Keep digging. Let me know if you find anything. Will do. And Jack, be careful. These people don't leave loose ends. The call ended. Jack turned back to the cabin. Lily sat inside, curled up with Cooper, Henry watching over her like a silent guardian. Jack knew what had to be done. Running wasn't enough. They had to vanish. As the fire crackled in the stove that night, Jack sat beside Lily, his voice low. We're going to leave. Not just this place. Everything. New names. New lives. We go somewhere they'll never find us. But it has to be your choice. Lily looked at him, fear and hope warring in her eyes. You'll stay with me? Jack took her hand, squeezing gently. Always. She swallowed hard, then nodded. Okay. Jack glanced at Henry. You know a way out of the country? Henry smirked. I know a few. And just like that, the plan was set. They would vanish. Slip through the cracks before anyone could catch them. It wouldn't be easy. It wouldn't be safe. But for Lily, it was the only way. By morning, Henry led them to an old airstrip hidden deep in the woods. A single propeller plane waited its pilot, one of Henry's old friends, prepping for takeoff. Jack loaded their few belongings, helping Lily into the cabin. She held Cooper close, her fingers trembling slightly. Henry clapped Jack on the shoulder. Take care of her. Jack nodded. I will. With one last look at the ground below, Jack climbed aboard. The engine roared to life, and as the plane lifted off, the world they had known grew smaller. They were leaving behind everything. Lily turned to Jack as the clouds swallowed them. Where are we going? Jack smiled faintly. Somewhere safe. Somewhere new. For the first time in what felt like forever, Lily exhaled and closed her eyes. She was safe. She was free. And no matter what came next, Jack would make sure she stayed that way.